I'd like to call the Planning Commission meeting together this morning for February 25th meeting. We've got, I think, one other commissioner that's not here yet, but I think he probably got caught in traffic. I think there's a power line down on 146. So we'll go ahead and get started. And before we get into our docket, let's join me for a Pledge of Allegiance, please.
With liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. And Shelley, would you go ahead and get everybody sworn in, please, staff-wise?
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right. With that, Commissioners, we have our, let me remind everyone here, if you have a cell phone, to please either turn it off or turn it on vibrate so that it doesn't interfere with the with our cameras in the courtroom here. First on our docket this morning is approval of our December 17th meeting minutes. We did not have a commission meeting in January. So, Commissioners, if you would, if there's any, could I get a motion to approve those minutes, and then we'll, after we get that, then we'll do additions or corrections. Okay, I have a moves, okay?
Second.
Okay, Ms. Smith seconds. Are there any additions or corrections that we need to make to these, to our minutes? Any additions or corrections? Seeing no hands go up, I think we'll go ahead and vote on the minutes as presented for December 17th. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Okay. Minutes from December 17th have been approved. All right, and just one announcement before we get into our first and only docket. We have on the agenda today election of officers under other business. And Commissioners, if it's okay with you all, Greg's called me last night. He's got the flu, so I told him, yeah, don't show up. So if it's okay, we'll just move the election till next month. And so just let everybody know. And with that, Ms. Nunn, would you please read our one docket, please?
Yes, docket PZ 20-001. Application has been filed by Hayden Family Revocable Living Trust for the approval of a zoning map amendment on approximately 2.6 acres. The property is located at 5907 West Highway 22, Crestwood. The change is from C2 Community Business District to C3 General Business District. Docket PZ 20-002. Application has been filed by Hayden Family Revocable Living Trust for an approval of a development plan, storage, and offices on approximately 2.6 acres. The property is located at 5907 West Highway 22, Crestwood. The proposed zoning is C3 General Business District.
All right, thank you. And Ms. Alvey, I understand you're going to introduce the docket for us?
Yes, I am. Good morning. Amy Alvey with the Oldham County Planning and Development Services. As Ms. Nunn stated, you have two requests before you today. One is a zoning map amendment from C2 to C3 commercial and also a development plan. The property is currently 2.06 acres. This is an aerial view of the property outlined in red. This is Highway 22 here. This is CSX Railroad located along the rear of the property. This shows the current zoning. Across the street is R2 and CO1, which is Waldeck Farm. To the right is I-1. To the left is I-1. And then across the railroad tracks, which these properties front on Highway 146, are Zone C3. This is the future land use map. Everything that is here in light green shows the intended future use or is commercial and industrial uses. Site history: on April 26th of 1977, the Oldham County Planning Commission recommended approval of a zoning change from I-1 to C2. And on May 17, 1977, the Oldham County Fiscal Court approved that zoning change. So the property originally was I-1, and a previous owner requested a zoning change to C2. So from the minutes from 1977, those were included in your packet. It specifically states, rather than requesting a variance in the I-1 industrial zoning, the Walzers decided to ask for a change of zoning, which is lesser use of the land, but will allow an office building to be constructed with lesser setback lines than would be required in I-1 zoning classification. So that was the justification for the zoning change from industrial to C2 commercial back in 1977. So this is, again, in your staff report, this is the motion that says because it requires a 100-foot setback on a lot of this size, it is not possible. In his addition, surrounding property is being developed as commercial, and this is a better zoning classification for this particular piece of land. So these are the minutes from the fiscal court from May of 1977. Again, this just shows the adoption of the zoning ordinance, changing the zoning from I-1 to C2. The property has been historically used as a building supply store, office space, as well as a storage facility. The property currently has 4 storage buildings located on the property and 2 office/warehouse buildings. So you'll see on this screen here, everything that is in brown, those are the storage buildings. And then here in blue are the 2 that are labeled office. This one is office/warehouse because it does have some additional indoor storage in it. The applicant is requesting to construct a 5,850 square foot storage building, and due to the current zoning C2, storage facilities are not a permitted use or conditional use in that zoning classification, and that is the reason they're asking for a zoning change from C2 to C3. So this is the location of the new storage building. The applicant's attorney met with staff to discuss options, and staff recommended C3 zoning rather than changing the zoning back to the original zoning of I-1 due to the setback requirements of the I-1 and the numerous variances that would need to be requested for the existing and proposed structures. Many storage and self-storage facilities are conditional use in the C3 zoning district. If the zoning map amendment is recommended for approval to the legislative body, the development plan is approved, the commission is technically approving the conditional use permit as well. Any binding elements attached to the development plan will be treated as conditions of approval, which are normally attached to a conditional use permit. The conditional use standards in place for many storage and self-storage facilities are listed here, as well as in your staff report. Many warehouses shall be limited to storage use only. No other commercial, wholesale, or industrial use shall be permitted. There is no plumbing allowed, and the minimum lot size is 3 acres. So the applicant is requesting a waiver of the 3-acre requirement to allow the construction of an additional storage building to fully use the property to maximize the economic benefits available. This came from the applicant's justification statement. According to the applicant's justification statement for the zoning change, the current physical and commercial characteristics of the neighborhood are such that there is little physical difference between a property zoned I-1 and the applicant's property, and there are other storage facilities in the immediate area under 3 acres. If the property was returned to its original I-1 setback variances would be required for existing structures and the proposed structure, and the proposed rezoning is in compliance with the future land use map. So this is C3 General Business District guidelines, development guidelines. You'll see here highlighted under conditional uses. It shows that there are many warehouses and self-storage facilities are a conditional use. It does not have any setbacks unless it abuts property that is zoned a residential district. So this is from Google Earth. So this is the outline here in red. So the blue square is the proposed building. This is looking into the site from Highway 22. So this would be the area here of where the building would go. So the driveway would be relocated here. Just another view from Highway 22 looking into, this is the building that is listed as office and warehouse on the plan. These are the storage buildings here. You You can see they're used to store boat and campers. This is the east view, so this is looking going back towards Centerfield. 22. This is the east adjoining property owner. So this is the property to the right. This is the adjoining property to the south. Again, this is Waldeck Farm. This is the west view leading on into Crestwood. This is the west adjoining property owner. This is some internal pictures of what is actually being stored inside the facility right now. So in summary, there are 3 requests before you today. Approval of a zoning map amendment on approximately 2.06 acres that is from C2 to C3. They are also asking for a waiver of the minimum lot size of 2.06 acres. The requirement is 3. And the approval of a development plan for mini storage facility with the following binding elements. And again, those are listed in your plan. The approval applies only to the plan presented at the February 25th, 2020 Oldham County Planning Commission public hearing. The development plan must comply with all established federal, state, and county ordinances and requirements at the time of approval, including lighting and landscaping. That is all that I have. And I did not pass out, but I will pass out because I forgot again. In your packet, I did not include the letter from the TRC meeting from the county engineer's office. I did email it to you last night, but I'll have copies for everyone here to pass out. I just did not include that in my packet when I sent it to you.
Okay. Mr. Sullivan, do you have anything to add this morning? Thanks, Amy.
Morning, Jim Sullivan, County Engineer, 100 West Jefferson Street. As indicated in the letter, we have minimal concern or no concern regarding this. With regard to stormwater, the location the building is being placed, there's already impervious asphalt. They are adding a new asphalt drive. However, when you consider the net change, it's very insignificant with regard to stormwater, much less than, it's probably close to a fifth of an acre. So,
Thank you, sir. All right, Commissioners, do you have any questions for staff? Ms. Bonet?
Amy, I'm not sure if this is for staff or more for the applicant, but the property is currently being used as storage under the C2 classification.
Correct.
That's not an allowable use under C2? Can you explain? Was it grandfathered in?
Historically, they did not add mini storage to the regulations. I believe, gosh, I can't remember what year it was.
They were grandfathered in?
Yeah, because it wasn't listed in there, and I looked it up, and I may have emailed. Yeah, they added it as a conditional use in C3 in 2007, update to the zoning regulations, as well as standards in place regarding the minimum lot size. But I believe.
So it just wasn't addressed at all until that time?
Correct. It was not listed as a permitted use or a conditional use.
And so because they want to construct another building is why they now need to address
Correct.
the corrected
Correct.
zoning?
We couldn't let them continue to allow a non-permitted or conditional use in that zoning classification. We couldn't allow them to expand it without doing a zoning change.
Okay, one other question. I know that the industrial setbacks are a lot further. It appears the property to the right, I don't know if that's east, west. It's industrial, but it appears to be, is that also grandfathered in? Their structures appear to be within what a standard setback would be.
Yes, yes. So a lot of the, historically, commercial zonings had setbacks, like C1, 2, and 3, and 4. Historically had like a 50-foot front yard setback and a 20-foot side yard setbacks. And industrials were less than that. So as time and progression made in our zoning map, our zoning ordinance updates, commercial zonings went to 0 and industrials increased. So these would be, like this building here,
Right.
is obviously not 35 feet from the side yard, which is today's regulation. So all of these buildings were constructed under the old set of regulations.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any additional questions for staff? Okay, seeing no hands go up. Thank you, Ms. Alvey. So we will now move into the presentation by the applicant or other representatives, or representative and others in support of the application. I assume, Mr. Baxter, that will be you.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, if we could, Mr. Vincent is here, and Mr. Hayden, the property owner, is here. Could I get them sworn?
Sure. Ms. Nunn?
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
All right. Thank you,
Thank you,
sir.
Mr. Chairman. Barry Baxter, 117 West Main Street in LaGrange. I represent the applicant. And can I get that?
Oh,
I don't know how that thing works, so I'm afraid to touch it. This is not very good, but this is actually from your all's GIS map. And the purpose of this picture is to show you all the area right in here. Our property is located in that area. The little lawn right there is the area that we're talking about developing. And And I just want to show you that from a historical perspective, that this little triangle, this is 329B. That little triangle has obviously been historically an industrial area. And so you go back to the history of this, and when the Walsers asked to have that zone change done, they had a less of a use with the commercial zone, but we still have a highly industrial area on to the right of our property. That's Nemeth Engineering. They have a lot of storage there. You all saw there's containers. There's a whole lot of stuff that goes in and out of there. The property to the west of us is actually, they're kind of using that, it looks to me like, for outside storage. I mean, I assume that's permitted. I don't know. And so when I went in initially and spoke with Amy and Jim about how we were going to handle this, my initial thought was the easy thing to do is this is all industrial through here, so let's just make this industrial. And they began to look at it a little bit, and can we go back to the PowerPoint? And the concern became the existing structure. So we've got existing storage in these 4 buildings. And we've got some pretty serious setback issues if we were going to use an industrial zone, not only on the road frontage but on the side setbacks. You can see that our buildings to the west sit right on the property line. Our building in the back is pretty close to the property line. We've got these 2 structures also are close. And originally we had talked about putting this building here. But after our engineer took a look at it, it was determined that probably a better location for this is where is drawn here on the map. When Bob gets up, he's just going to generally talk about the design here. And the one thing that you all will have noticed from one of the photographs is that our existing entrance is right here. And we've already got approval from the state to relocate that to an area in here, so that will not be any kind of issue as it relates to this. The building that we're going to construct is going to be again for this type of large storage for campers, boats, things like that. It is not like the mini warehouse. Kind of back in here is it's known as Red Dot, I think. There's a storage facility back there that has some inside storage, the smaller units with the little doors that slide up and down that people drive in and unload their cars and stick their whatever they don't want in their basement, their attic in there. That's not what we're talking about doing here. This is going to be in the same theme, same vein as these buildings already that we have on the property. It's not going to result in a major change to any of this. We are looking at, obviously, for the C3 just because of not wanting to apply for 5 variances, maybe, on this particular application. It just seemed to be a simpler and cleaner way to do it. I think if you were to stand at the front of our property and look to the east and look to the west, you're going to see very similar type uses or even more higher uses with the industrial zone that's all throughout there. We don't see this as any kind of major change in what we've got. Ms. Bonet is absolutely correct that this was something that was grandfathered in, and Mr. Hayden went in to get a building permit. He didn't think this was going to be any big deal at all. And he shows up and he tries to get the building permit, and they say, oh, you're C2. You can't do that. He's like, what do you mean I can't do that? I got 4 of these buildings already on the property. And they, yeah, well, you do, but those were before we changed the ordinance. So now you've got to get this rezoned, and that's why we're here today. I'm going to let Bob come up and talk a little bit about the design and just the entrance and things like that.
Good morning. Bob Vincent Engineering and Land Surveying, 306 West Jefferson, LaGrange, 40031. As Barry stated, we are here today to go through the process and meet the demands that we've got to in order to be able to construct the proposed storage building, which is going to be 5,850 square feet, as Mr. Hayden desires. Initially, we did look at putting the building on the east side of the property, but right along here is a 15-foot LG&E easement, which we couldn't encroach upon, and then the existing sewer and electric lines which serve the office building back here are here, so the building would not fit in that area. So what we're proposing to do is to build the proposed building in this location, which sets it on, basically on top of the existing entrance that is there. We're going to move the entrance to the east about 50 feet right here. I have spoke with Johnny Micah from the Highway Department. He has looked at the site. We've got roughly 1,000 feet of sight distance in both directions, so he has no issue at all with us moving it. The only requirement is that we will bring the new entrance up to the current highway standards, which will be a 24-foot wide entrance, 35-foot radius on the radii coming in and out of the entrance, and then we will replace the existing culvert with RCP, and it'll have the slope safety head walls on either end, which we don't have now. We've just got a metal culvert that's there for the existing entrance. I do have the email from Johnny Micah from the Highway Department, so I want to introduce that to the record. Just leave it here, okay? And
Straighten it up a little bit, Bob. Other way. Where you had it.
okay. And again, it just states that we've got roughly 1,000 feet of sight distance in both directions, and that we will meet the commercial entrance specifications. And that's really all I've got. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And the only other thing I would mention, Mr. Chairman, is on the waiver. You know, we're constrained, obviously, and if you see this, there's no way we could get another acre, it doesn't look like, to be able to meet that requirement to have 3 acres. But I think if you all will recall, this is not an unusual situation for storage facilities in the county. While we have a restriction on the size of the lot, there are at least 2 or 3 that I can think of in Crestwood that do not meet the 3-acre requirement. I mean, it's not an unusual thing to have that happen. And in our circumstance, I mean, we've got already these existing structures and uses. All we're asking to do is stick that one more building in there, and we're essentially, you know, repurposing a piece of property that's already used for this by adding something that's just going to allow Mr. Hayden and his family to get a little more economic benefit out of the property. So that's our purpose, and that's the extent of our presentation, Mr. Chairman.
All righty. Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else here that would like to speak in support of this application? Okay. Seeing none, I'll move into testimony and those and questions by those opposing the application. Are there anyone here that would like to testify or have questions in opposition to the application? Okay, don't see anybody. Let's see, that I think that'll move us into commissioners. Do you have questions for the applicant? Any questions for the applicant? Okay. Mr. Baxter and Mr. Vincent, you must have done a good job on the presentation this morning. So.
It's all Ms. Albee. I told her she makes my job too easy with her staff report.
All right, last chance. Any questions? Okay, seeing none, final statement, Mr. Baxter?
I won't belabor this. I would ask you all to approve our request for the zone change and our development plan, please. What we're asking for, again, is a very minor change, and we would greatly appreciate it if you would approve this. We think it comports with a comprehensive plan. We are reusing a piece of property, using it for a use that's already used that way, and we're just asking to add a little more to it. It's not going to make a major change or increase the footprint substantially. Thank you all for your time this morning.
All right, with that, docket PZ -20-001 and PZ 20002 are closed. And as always, I'll call on Mr. Urban and Mr. Combs first thing we will consider is the first docket, which is the 20001, the zoning change amendment, map amendment.
Right.
Mr. Urban.
You do have three decisions today, and as the chairman said, the first decision is regarding the recommendation to the city of Crestwood for a zoning map amendment. And as always, in your staff report on page 3, you have sample motions for both approval or denial for that recommendation. I think when you make that decision or motion, you need to include that things like you heard testimony today, and there's a justification statement that the applicant has submitted, and if you agree to that, you can rely on that as part of your decision. So that's the first item, and there are no binding elements or issues related to the zoning map amendment recommendation.
All right, you've heard Mr. Urban recommend what is required at this point on the zoning map amendment request, and this will go to the city of Crestwood as a recommendation. Is anyone have a motion that I'd like to call as chairman to get a motion on the floor, and if we get it passed, then we'll open it up for discussion. Mr. Falvey?
I'll make an attempt at this. I'd like to make the motion to approve PZ 20-001, approval of the zoning map amendment to the city of Crestwood. It complies with the objectives of the comprehensive plan and subdivision regulations, and I believe it will fit the existing characteristics of the area that are already in place. I would include the binding elements as listed.
There's not binding elements on the zoning map amendment.
That'll be
Sorry,
on-
they're
Oh,
in
I'm
there, but
sorry. Okay.
yeah, there isn't a binding element on the zoning.
All right.
They'll be
then
on the
disregard
development
that
plan.
part.
Okay, that's your motion?
That's my
Okay,
motion.
we have a second? Okay, Ms. Smith seconds. All right, now, any discussion on the request for the zoning map amendment from C2 to C3? And this will be a recommendation that goes to the city of Crestwood.
Well, and I didn't hear it, but I want to make sure that you, based on the testimony you heard today and the justification statement submitted by
Based
the
on the
applicant.
testimony I've heard today.
Is that adequate, Mr. Urban?
I'm not an attorney, but I
know.
believe so, yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Our attorney had to go across the to a court hearing this morning, so. All right. Any further discussion or any discussion on this motion to approve the zoning map amendment? Okay, seeing none, Ms. Nunn, we'll take the vote here, and this is a motion to approve the recommendation from Planning and Zoning to the City of Crestwood on docket PZ 20001.
Okay, Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Bonet?
Yes.
Ms. Davis? Mr. Neal?
Yes.
Ms. Nasser?
Yes.
Mr. Elder?
Yes.
Mr. Falvey?
Yes.
Ms. Hagan?
Yes.
Mr. Hampton?
Yes.
Mr. Klingenfuss?
Yes.
All righty, the motion on docket PZ 20001, zoning map amendment request that will go to the City of Crestwood has been approved on a vote of 10-0.
The next item that is in front of you is consideration of the waiver, which is to allow a 2.06 acre lot to, instead of the 3 acre minimum. I think you have to decide if that's appropriate or not before looking at the development plan.
All right, do we have a motion? Ms. Bonet?
I'd like to move that we approve the waiver. I think that strict compliance with the regulations would create an undue hardship because it would not allow the owner to properly utilize his property. It is unique in that it was grandfathered in, has been used for this use for a long time, and simply adding one building to an industrial-type area is not going to be detrimental to the public at all and will fit in well with the surrounding area.
Mr. Urban, was that?
Yes, for the waiver.
All right, this is for the waiver. Do we have a second? Okay, got multiple seconds down here, all right.
We'll pick one so that Shelley knows who
Oh,
made the
okay,
second.
John Falvey, Mr. Falvey. All right, do we have any discussion on the approval of the waiver request? Any discussion? Okay, I think we'll just do this one by voice vote. All those in favor of the waiver request on docket PZ 20002 signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Okay, the waiver has been approved. And Mr. Urban?
Having
development plan.
made a recommendation to the city of Crestwood for a zoning map amendment and then approving the waiver, your next decision is regarding the development plan. And again, on page 4 in your staff report, there's a motion to approve or deny. This is where you would propose the binding elements, and there are only two. The first one is that the approval applies only to the plan presented at the February 25th, 2020 Oldham County Planning Commission public hearing. And the second is that the development plan must comply with all established federal, state, and county ordinances and requirements at the time of approval, including lighting and landscape.
Okay. You've heard the request on the development plan approval. Do we have a motion? We have a motion. Mr. Oh, I'm sorry. Ms. Bonet or Ms. Bonet? That'd be fine.
I'd like to move to approve the preliminary development plan. It does comply with multiple objectives of the comprehensive plan, zoning ordinance, and subdivision regulations. It's quite simple. It's adding one building, similar to buildings that are already present, in a thoughtful location. Their new drive has already been approved, and they are avoiding all utilities. So basically, it's very simple.
Got a motion on the floor to approve the development plan on docket PZ 20002. Do we have a second? Okay. Got, Mr. Hampton seconds. Now, do we, any discussion on the motion to approve the development plan? Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, Ms. Nunn, if you would, let's take the vote on the.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I need to include the proposed binding elements. I think I left that
oh,
out,
okay.
that are stated in the staff report. There are two of them.
Okay, so we've added two binding elements to the development plan approval. Is there any discussion at this point? Any discussion? Okay. All right, Ms. Nunn, let's go ahead and do the vote, please.
Okay, Mr. Falvey,
Yes.
Mr. Elder,
Yes.
Ms. Hagan,
Yes.
Ms. Bonet,
Yes.
Ms. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Hampton,
Yes.
Mr. Lingenfuss,
Yes.
Ms. Nasser,
Yes.
Mr. Neal,
Yes.
Ms. Smith.
Yes.
All right, the requested development plan approval on docket PZ 20002 has been approved on a vote of 10-0. Commissioners, before we adjourn here, we do have just a couple things I think Ms. Alvey wants to talk to us about.
Right, just a reminder, we have study review committee this Thursday at 5 o'clock. We will be going over information related to the future land use map, as well as minor plat regulations and the extension of expiration policy. Most likely, we will have a meeting in March. We have an application, filing deadlines are tomorrow, but most likely we will have a meeting in March.
All right, folks, with that, I think we just a little past 9:30, so we get you back to work or back home here pretty early this morning. So with that, Planning Commission is adjourned.
Yeah.